Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Scott Garber back in the saddle of the Profluence Sports Podcast, where we are highlighting founders, investors, executives across the sports business landscape. Today, I'm excited to welcome founder and CEO of Mogul, Ayden Syal, to the show, helping reimagine and shape what the future of athletes earning looks like through NIL. Aidan, my man, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Scott, man, it's a pleasure. Long time coming here. Looking forward to the conversation. Obviously love what you guys are doing at Profluence. So really appreciate you having me.
No, excited for you to be here and, been a big fan of your journey. Leading from the front, helping carve out a path that did not exist, and ultimately being a thought leader and voice in shaping what the evolution of how athletes are participating and showing up in the current ecosystem. For all you first-time listeners, you already know that we're going to take it all the way back and get Aiden's origin story. Who is he? Where's he come from? Where did Mogul get born out of? And then from that foundation, we're going to talk about all the exciting things that you're working on now and where you see the space going. So, Aidan, without going any further, man, give the listeners a little background to who you are and where Mogul actually came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Scott mentioned, right, everyone, my name is Ayden Syal. I'm the CEO and founder of Mogul. For those of you not familiar, Mogul is a leading athlete influencer marketing platform. So what we do at our core is we match athletes to brands for influencer marketing, sponsorships, endorsements, and tons of other campaigns. And more than anything else, the platform that we've built really democratizes access to 30,000 plus college athletes for brands to reach their target audience and leverage the influence that these athletes provide. A little bit about myself. Founded the business in 2019. Prior to founding the business, worked in banking and private equity after graduating from the University of Notre Dame, which is where I actually witnessed this problem firsthand. A number of my closest friends were athletes across all of the sports at the University of Notre Dame. So one of my very close friends who I ultimately built the business with was the starting quarterback, Brandon Wimbush, but then had friends across the athletics landscape, fencers, swimmers, men's and women's soccer players, and really recognized the immense value that these athletes provide both at the local and regional level for these communities such as South Bend, Indiana, but also recognized that there was going to need to be streamlined access for brands looking to leverage the influence of these athletes, while also ensuring that NCAA compliance and restrictions and regulations were followed as well.
No, it's really cool, man. And we joked before we got on the screen here. I mean, Aidan, I remember hearing about Mogul in the first wave of sort of tackling this NIL opportunity that was presented to us amidst a ton of chaos, right? There was COVID, which shut down everything. We had the transfer portal bubbling up. Then we had NIL. Give me a little insight. Were you in your finance world and had this entrepreneurial itch? Did you just feel like this was a problem that needed to be solved and you were best suited? What ultimately led you to starting Mogul in the midst of so much chaos and uncertainty?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? When we first started the business, it was extremely chaotic, right? I mean, the moniker that people use all the time is that it's the wild, wild west. Obviously, we had the pandemic occurring in the background as well. But yes, so I founded the business in 2019. I've always been an avid sports fan, specifically an avid college athletics fan, obviously big Notre Dame fan as well, and recognized that there was going to be an opportunity to really streamline access between both parties that would derive each other and deliver so much value. But for me personally, right, I actually never saw myself as an entrepreneur. It wasn't something that was taught while I was in university as a potential avenue or opportunity for students to pursue. It wasn't something that was discussed in my household growing up. But in 2019, I had the idea for a marketplace that would connect to the two parties and started working on it in my free time, right? We built the minimum viable product, which was really ready to go in later 2020. And then we eventually got it venture backed prior to NIL going into effect. Obviously, the NIL regulation actually accelerated while we were building the business. And we built a marketplace or a website, really, a landing page to get signups and build a wait list in preparation for NIL going into effect. So then ultimately on July 1st of 2021, when the NCAA made it permissible for college athletes everywhere throughout the country to monetize their publicity rights. We actually launched with a fully built product ready to go to match athletes and brands, automate contracts, automate disclosures, provide reporting and access and visibility on both sides of the marketplace. And we launched with about 1,000 brands signed up to the wait list and about 6,000 athletes signed up. So, we were definitely a first mover within the landscape. Our foresight and ability to really skate to where the puck was going ahead of time has continued to help us differentiate our offering and really situated us well for success.
No, and you guys continue to do that, and you have to do that, right? Like, and later in the show, we'll talk about being a student of the game. I'm always curious as a founder how you stay up to date with things. But Aidan, real quick, you guys got venture funding, relatively early in the journey in a world that was sort of chaotic. We have a lot of founders that listen to our podcast. I'm curious if you would give any founders that are looking to raise capital, in this ecosystem of sport. There's a ton of change. It marries a lot of similar times of when you guys were raising for NIL. Anything that, as you look back and reflect on the journey when you were starting it, that you would share with founders who are innovating in a space that might be uncertain, that are looking to raise some capital right now?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think one of the things that comes to mind especially when you're dealing with a blue ocean opportunity, right? This was a brand new landscape. We were one of the few companies really focusing on solving a major problem. But what we did in the 2 years leading up to NIL going into effect was we actually spoke to as many athletes, as many brands, and as many potential customers as we could. And then we manually did campaigns with former college athletes and professional athletes to really identify what obstacles and barriers occur in traditional influencer marketing and sponsorship campaigns, and how those obstacles could be automated with technology, right? So one of the ones that's very low-hanging fruit was, okay, let's automate contracts, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of red tape to review legal contracts. It obviously costs a lot of money to have a legal team on staff to review those as well. So let's take all of these contracts from deals that we're doing manually and figure out what key fields are consistent across all of them. And then we spoke in a lot of focus groups, even clubhouse rooms, right? If you recall.
Yeah.
This is the pandemic. So we spoke to as many people that would be potential customers, but also other stakeholders in the space, whether they be agents or talent lawyers or, obviously venture investors as well. And really, more than anything else, what we identified is that this is a problem. This solution would help to solve it. It would drive value for all parties at hand, and people would pay for it. And so what we also, and this is continuously, malleable, but we also identified a preliminary pricing model as well, right? Obviously, you don't want to come to market with something that costs a ton of money before you build case studies and build user experiences and testimonials. But at some point, the purpose of a business is to make money.
Absolutely.
So that was definitely something that we were luckily way ahead of the curve on in terms of validating the problem. Because there's plenty of amazing ideas, but if you don't have the distribution or the ability to get in front of those customers, and if you don't have their feedback, it's going to be challenging to get it off the ground. And those initial testimonials, feedback, and all the feedback loops that we identified actually helped us raise that initial round of financing.
I think it's great advice for our founders to hear, and the mechanics of what was going on when you guys raised that initial money. I think we can look in youth sports, college sports, pro sports, the evolution of data, and there's just as much chaos and infrastructure evolution happening right now. So those little kernels, I think, are super helpful. Aidan, one of the things that I want to touch on before we get to the current state of Mogul and what you guys are solving in the marketplace, I want to talk about this idea of evolution of the business, right? Mark, you started as a marketplace. We watched a lot come online. Very few survive. Congratulations for you guys being one of them. But give me this idea of as a founder, we don't want to be reactionary. We want to respond to the market. How do you make sure you and your team are prepared to think that NFTs might be the way, but they're actually not, to make sure that, as this legislation flows down, that you're in a position to respond and not get caught reacting, to keep you guys leading from the front?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to, more than anything else, when you start a business, to really and truly understand what your North Star is. Because anytime you launch a new business, especially in its infancy phase, you're going to get pulled in a lot of directions, right? There's a lot of shiny new objects. You're like, oh my gosh, that might be able to make us money. That might be able to make us money. Oh, other people in the space are doing X, Y, and Z, and they seem to be doing well. Should we be pursuing that? And so for us as a business, especially in a very, very new NIL landscape where people were providing solution services technology across the gamut, whether it be from a compliance standpoint, from a university software standpoint, from a education standpoint, we were really trying to be initially the one-stop shop for NIL. And that led us down some rabbit holes that, in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have pursued. You mentioned NFTs. This was something that, we received direct feedback from our athlete base that they wanted the ability to produce NFTs. And so we partnered in that landscape, with a company that was going to be able to deliver that solution. But, obviously hindsight's 2020. NFTs really aren't interesting to people anymore. And we spent money building solutions and integrating that partner. Secondarily, right, when NIL first started, a lot of companies were building software solutions for schools. So, they were building front-end marketplace software with back-end compliance tools. And really more than anything else, they were giving each school their own personal local marketplace to connect local businesses and donors and fans to the athletes. Now, we received a lot of inbound requests from schools asking us to build the same because they were automatically receiving disclosures from us. So they were seeing all of the activity on the marketplace, and they're seeing that, we deliver true NIL deals to athletes at a really high volume. And it's all their athletes, not just, the starting quarterback or the starting point guard. So at the request of a number of universities, we built those solutions as well. Fast forward, probably 2 years from launch from there, we had nearly 50 university partners at our height, but the budgets were collapsing. And our North Star had always been delivering influencer marketing value and a true ROI to brands through technology. And so we ultimately decided really to focus our efforts purely on that offering because that's what's always differentiated us and differentiated the technology in the landscape. Whereas others really do much better with regards to their university relationships and their school access, we were really thriving and leading the charge on getting athletes paid and ensuring an ROI for brands. So more than anything else, I think it's having relentless focus on what you are trying to achieve. Obviously, you need to be willing to pivot and make adjustments to that as time goes on. But trying to do too much early on leads to tech debt, leads to wasted investment, leads to swelling human capital that you don't necessarily need. And we went through all of those experiences as an early stage startup. And now we're operating in a much more lean and focused organization.
The North Star, I think, is so important. And that's not just at the beginning of the journey, that's at every phase of the journey, because new levels, new devils, right? Like we think that it's, we've gotten past the initial product market fit phase. Now it's smooth sailing. Psych, that's not necessarily how it works, right? I think that's incredible insight. And it also allows you to not be everything to everybody, right? And I think in a world when we specifically drill down on NIL, I'm going to move you into thought leader now. We watch everybody try to be everything to everyone, and it just sort of turns into chaos, which ultimately I think the athlete suffers, the brand suffers, the university suffers. And so, Aidan, depending on who you talk to, we get a different definition of what's going on in the NIL landscape. I'm going to put you on the spot here, speaking to somebody who might just be listening as a passive listener, wanting to learn, or someone building in the space. At Mogul right now, give us sort of the breakdown of what's going on through your lens in NIL and where you see exciting opportunities to continue to lean in, iterate, and push this ecosystem forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think from an NIL landscape perspective, right, there's never been a deeper importance on true traditional NIL. And what I mean by that is actual campaigns, actual activations, actual sponsorships, appearances, where athletes are getting paid because of their influence, the value that they can provide to brands, and their notoriety. Historically, when you look at the NIL landscape, there was a variety of incumbents and also new experiences that changed the perception of NIL. So, about a year in, the concept of collectives, which are basically, local booster clubs, came to fruition. And they were, building funds and capital to pay athletes effectively to play and to commit to those schools. And that started to, from a media landscape perspective, really turn people off to the concept of NIL, because now NIL is just being referred to pay to play, athletes getting paid in order to compete. But that was never the actual goal of NIL. The goal of NIL, and by the way, I need to be clear, athletes should be getting paid to compete for these schools where they're driving millions and millions in revenue for them. But it's become convoluted with the moniker of name, image, and likeness. Universities or booster clubs paying athletes is a very separate piece of the equation as it relates to NIL. NIL relates to athletes being able to monetize their God-given right for their publicity, their platforms, and who they are as people, and obviously the impact that they can deliver to brands. So for us at Mogul, that's always been our North Star. We built solutions for collectives historically, we built solutions for universities, but our North Star has always been brands want to work with these athletes because they have the market-leading engagement rate across all creators. Athletes on Mogul have an average Instagram engagement rate of 19.1%. That's 6 times the average influencer creator. They also have a differentiated capability to reach Gen Z and next-gen audiences because of the authenticity, the trust, and the credibility that they provide as influencers. And then thirdly, they have a very unique geographic location in traditionally hard to reach markets, such as South Bend, Indiana. So what we do is we are automating and optimizing that entire experience for brands. So we've built AI agents and AI employees throughout the entire life cycle of the business. We have first-party data in the platform. So every athlete authenticates their socials, which gives brands visibility into their audience demographics, their social performance, the brands they've worked with in the past. And then our AI agents actually help these brands build campaigns and match them to high-fidelity athletes that will help deliver results and ultimately help them reach their target audience. And so for us, it's all about automating and streamlining that process and reducing what we refer to as time to value. So the time in which a brand gets value from the solution. If you work with an influencer agency or a talent agency or another tool, that could take weeks, if not months, to build campaigns, find the right athletes, get the contracts in place, and get an Instagram post up. At Mogul, that should take less than 24 hours. And so that's what, one of our key differentiating factors is delivering that value to small local sized businesses all the way up to national brands with breakneck speed and record pace.
Which, look at, I wore the athlete hat, right? And you're pulled in a gazillion different directions. And I think it's so easy to talk about the athlete should be paid. But the reality is they're student athletes still. And the demand is so much. And I think that gets lost when it's, we talk about, like some of the early conversations. They don't understand taxes. They don't understand how to do contracts. They don't understand how to work with an agent. And these are all great learning lessons, but it's so exciting to watch the acceleration of these tools to let the athlete get back to what they're really good at in this finite moment in time, but also, deliver on what they're expected to from these brands and have it sort of condensed down into this box, right? Without having to think too much. Now, Aidan, I got to ask, right? In the gray space right now, there's a ton of focus and has been on college, but now this is opened up where now athletes in high school and younger are able to leverage their name, image, and likeness. I'm curious from a Mogul lens, when we think about extending the lifetime value of an athlete, getting them into the platform earlier, how do you guys maintain college business, but also think about growing into subsequent markets that will feed as well?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So the way that we operate with high school athletes today is they can sign up and create a profile. So they can link their socials, they can see their insights, they can see how the platform works, they can better understand who their audience that they deliver to people are, and then all of your profiles on Mogul are publicly shareable. So it becomes basically a digital resume for them. But we do not currently work with high school athletes. And the reason why is because, from a broader platform governance perspective, it's challenging for us to work with minors because of how you pay out minors. A lot of them don't have their own bank accounts or they're, not tax paying individuals. So that's a piece of it. But But then secondarily, only roughly half of the states have permitted NIL regulation. So we are really focused on, again, being very, very laser focused on what our value add to brands is, which is college athlete influencers. Now, the way that we think about athletes has evolved and changed. We view them as distribution channels. Mm-hmm. So when you think about traditional digital advertising, brands are advertising across linear, display, CTV, and they're running ads, right? So if you're watching NBC, you're watching a Notre Dame football game and you see a Nissan ad, right? Brands are working with agencies in order to run that ad on that network. We feel the same way about athletes and their social handles. So what we're building is basically, it's called Athlete Paid Social, and we enable brands to take the ads that they're already running across Meta, TikTok, everywhere else on social, and they can now run that through athletes' Instagram channels because it enhances the performance by 230% on average because the audience is significantly better targeted. The athletes have significantly better engagement and authenticity and trust. And so what we're enabling brands to do is reach their target audience for a fraction of the cost with breakneck speed because you're running your ad that you're already running on Meta through athletes' pages. And it's a passive income stream for athletes.
I love that.
Athletes that might be listening to the platform or to the podcast here is you should absolutely sign up for Mogul because just by linking your socials, you can get passive income streams. You don't even have to produce content or participate in campaigns.
Finally. It makes sense, right? Like there is a plug and play solution where, linear figured it out. And it felt like we didn't have to do UGC for all of these brands to be able to go ahead and activate the athlete channel. I think just a brilliant way to start to meet the market where it's at. And leverage assets that are already created that once the campaign's over usually just goes and lives in the ether somewhere and maybe goes to die in a closet. So incredible ingenuity there. Aidan, real quick before we sort of double down on that, I gotta ask on the other side of the fence. I typically go younger when we talk about NIL. One of the areas where I've watched colleges and universities fumble is their alumni engagement. And I think that holds true when we think about an athlete as they graduate. If they don't go pro, they still have developed this great brand cachet and an audience. How do you think about athletes that have graduated and keeping them involved within this ecosystem that you built?
Yeah, so on Mogul, for example, athletes that graduate, they're still allowed to use the platform, and many do, right? So basically, every 60 days, you're getting a ping that's asking if your information is still accurate, whether you're a current. And so simply by clicking, I've graduated from University of Tennessee, it just says you're now a former athlete, but you still have that following, that audience, that cachet, as you mentioned. And you should absolutely still be able to monetize your name, image, and likeness. So we do a lot of work with former college athletes, whether or not they go pro or not. And so, there's a natural matriculation as it relates to our marketplace, which is why we have a lot of professional athletes on the platform as well today. The majority of them started using Mogul when they were in college, but they recognize how easy it is to connect to opportunities, how easy it is to fulfill your deliverables. And it, again, is super, super simple to understand who is my audience, how is it evolving, how is my social performance with all the stuff that I'm just posting naturally as a human being, how's that being impacted by the type of content that I'm posting. And then there's also a social networking piece on the platform as well. You can message other athletes on the platform. There's an NIL feed. You can see all of the deals that are being done on the platform and get ideas for the best type of performing content and how other athletes are activating and providing value in the space. So there's many reasons for athletes to continue to use the platform beyond obviously the ability to just get paid.
And we talk so much about leveraging the shield, whether that's your university crest, the professional league that you play for, something that demands so much more attention than yourself. And I think that, there used to be this hard stop. Hey, I'm done playing at Duke or South Alabama, fill in the blank. And now I'm on to the next venture where this is so exciting, where that IP as an athlete can continue to be a great resource as you develop professionally and also earn as well. And I think a lot of people think about a hard line once their playing days are done. It's so exciting to hear that you give that opportunity to continue to leverage the name, image, and likeness, of the athletes that work so hard. Aidan, I'm super curious, man. In a world where private equity is moving into sport, we're watching new legislation move in. Give us sort of insight as to over the next 12 months, if you are participating or building within this space, what would you be paying attention to stay smart on where the space is going?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is a lot of private equity activity. I think the majority of that private equity activity is going to occur somewhat on the boundaries of NIL, right? It's much more related to the multimedia rights partners and the properties themselves, because obviously, like, if you're a Learfield customer and the insert university logo and marks, there's a lot of value that could be delivered with significant sales resources and with an added supply or additional solutions with regards to marketing capabilities. As it relates to NIL itself, right? NIL from an influencer marketing standpoint, we don't anticipate a whole lot of activity from a private equity standpoint there, unless if there's a potential roll up of different service providers in the ecosystem, which we've heard rumblings about. But if I were building in the landscape, right, the influencer marketing NIL piece is, I would say, probably taken care of at this point, largely speaking. But we've seen a lot of new companies really focus on the data.
Yes.
So that whether that be athletes' influencer data and their capabilities or their brand affinities of their audience demographics, I think that's been a really cool new entrance point for new companies to build within the space and help universities better understand their athlete distribution. I think another way that I really see, and some of our customers are actually doing this, is connectivity to athletes. So whether it be from like an education or a coaching standpoint, hey, this athlete is competing at Duke and I want to compete at Duke. Well, I would love to talk to that athlete about how well should I go to this camp? Did that camp have any impact on you getting recognized by Duke or other potential recruiters? What should I be doing from a huddle perspective, from a networking perspective, from a pure statistics perspective? What should I be doing in order to pursue my goal, which you've already in many ways accomplished? So that's been really cool to see. But yeah,
Sweet.
There's plenty of ways to build within the landscape. I think for me, as someone who didn't view themselves as an entrepreneur, my advice for anyone who is thinking about it and has an idea is, once you've validated that idea, so going back to what I talked about earlier in the podcast today, recognize that people will pay for your solution and that they recognize that it's a problem and you've had a lot of experience speaking with those folks. I would always encourage people to take the leap, because otherwise you will always ask yourself, what if? So I just think regardless of what happens when you do it, don't be afraid. There's plenty of people in the Profluence network and beyond that are willing to help, because entrepreneur to current and prospective entrepreneurs, it's a really, really great community and it takes a lot of guts to do it. So there's a lot of immediate and immense and inherent respect for people who go that journey.
Absolutely. And it comes with a level of responsibility, right? Like, as we are entrepreneurs, we're also responsible for shaping what the future of this landscape looks like for my kiddos and everybody else, future generations that are going to be participating in it. Aidan, what a treat, dude. As we turn this down, turn the corner and wind this thing down, I got 2 rapid fire questions for you, and then a shameless plug section for you to be able to go ahead and tell us where we can learn more about Mogul. But over the tenure of what you've been building, is there an athlete or a campaign that sticks out to you as one of the most memorable? If so, why?
Yeah, one of the ones that we did that was really fun. This is years ago. This was at the end of 2021, I believe. But I grew up, so for those of you that don't know, where I was born at the end of 1994. So early on in my childhood, Crash Bandicoot was a big game, and it's like the first Crash Bandicoot game. And so we worked with Activision on a campaign with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was then the starting quarterback at UCLA, to promote their new game. And we did a full day content shoot where Dorian is playing the game, and we did a lot of virtual reality, and we basically jumped him into the game. So he's running through as if he's Crash. But then the final piece of the content was actually Dorian on the field with someone dressed up in the Crash Bandicoot mascot. And he was throwing touchdown passes to them, juking, spiking the ball with the mascot. And that was a really, really fun one. Obviously, it's a major brand, Activision, probably the largest video game brand in the world, but it was extremely unique And it took a lot of sophistication with regards to the content that we were building as well. So that one's one that I always think about, and shout out to our team back then for the creativity in order to execute that. So yeah, that one's really fun.
How cool, man. And sort of last rapid fire is, when we think NIL, basketball and football dominate the airwaves. They're the revenue generating sports within universities, but sometimes some of the best athletes and campaigns come out of these non-revenue generating sports. I'm curious, what's a sleeper sport within the NIL ecosystem that performs really well that we wouldn't necessarily think about?
Yeah, our best performing sport on Mogul is women's soccer. They have done the highest volume of deals every year since the inception of the business. And then, really across the entire women's sports landscape, female athlete influencers are delivering much more value with regards to pure performance and pure audience reach than their male counterparts, at least on Mogul. And so we've seen really, really great success. See, women's basketball has accelerated dramatically, and we've done a lot of deals across women's basketball. Then women's volleyball as well has done really well. But women's soccer is doing the highest volume of deals on Mogul, now 7 years running.
Wow.
I guess 6 years running. Yeah. Women's soccer continues to lead the charge for us.
How exciting. And as a proud girl dad, everything is trending up and to the right for women's sports. And man, it couldn't make me happier. Aidan, you're going to take us home, man. Give us, if we're an athlete, if we're a brand, if we're a potential investor and want to connect with you or learn more about Mogul, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah. So obviously our website is www.mogul, that's MOGL.online. So if you're a prospective athlete, obviously you should download our mobile application as well. That's the easiest way to connect to deals. Link your socials. You'll receive push notifications anytime you're a fit for a campaign, but then also you can scroll through the library of available campaigns and apply with one click. You'll also get your public profile, which you can share across your socials. We recommend hosting it in your bio, and you can understand your audience demographics and social performance. If you're a brand, you can book a meeting on our website, or you can sign up for free, work with the AI agents to create your own campaigns, but we're always available to talk. If you're a prospective investor, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. That's Ayden Syal. Both names are spelled oddly, but if you search Mogul, you should be able to find me. And yeah, we would love to work with and support anyone that is out there.
Man, well, listen, from the Profluence family, thank you for everything you're doing, leading from the front, shaping what the future of sports is going to look like. We couldn't be more grateful for you in the ecosystem. I look forward to following along the chaotic roller coaster you're on, and we'll have to do a checkpoint in a year to see if some of your predictions hold up, man. But thank you for everything. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, my man. Anytime.